The day my sister stole my future, I was wearing my favorite purple sweater and counting college acceptance letters. 3 of them spread across my bed like winning lottery tickets. But by sunset, those dreams had turned to ash in my mouth. I'm Natasha, and I learned early that having a sister like Tabitha meant living life one step behind, always reaching for things she'd already claimed. Now, 13 years later, I'm standing in my Austin high-rise apartment, watching the city lights flicker to life while my laptop chimes with another successful project completion. Girl, you crushed it again. Ismael's voice carries through my AirPods. The client's practically throwing money at us. I smile, taking a sip of my carefully crafted pour-over coffee. Well, that's what happens when you actually deliver what you promise. Unlike some people we know, he doesn't say her name, but he doesn't have to. Ancient history, I lie, my fingers absently touching the small scar on my wrist, a souvenir from chasing Tabitha across the playground when we were kids. Even then, she was always taking what was mine. My phone buzzes with a text from Martina. Quarterly numbers are in. Your team's performance is outstanding. Dinner tomorrow to discuss your promotion? This is my life now. Carefully built, meticulously maintained, like the succulent garden on my balcony. Each achievement a quiet rebellion against the chaos Tabitha left in her wake. You still there? Ismael asks. Yeah, just thinking about tomorrow's presentation. I walk to my home office, where a wall of certificates and awards reflects the afternoon sun. Remember when I first moved here? Sleeping on your couch, learning to code between waitressing shifts? You mean when you were too stubborn to ask your parents for help? Even after Tabitha cleaned out my college fund? Yeah, I interrupt, the old anger flickering. But look where stubborn got me. The memory rises unbidden. Mom and Dad sitting at our kitchen table, faces ashen, holding the bank statement. Tabitha standing there with practiced tears, claiming she'd borrowed the money to help her boyfriend's startup. $40,000 of my future, gone in a single transaction. You turned out okay, though, Ismael says softly. More than okay. I did. I touched the smooth surface of my desk. Real mahogany, not the pressed wood of my childhood desk that Tabitha had claimed as soon as she deemed it cool enough. A notification pops up on my screen, another deposit from my latest consulting gig. The amount would have seemed impossible during those first lean years in Austin. Hey, I've got to run, Ismael says. Dinner with the boyfriend's parents. You sure you don't want to join? They always ask about you. Rain check. I've got to prep for tomorrow's. A knock at my door cuts me off. 3 sharp raps that echo through my carefully ordered space. Someone's there? Ismael asks. Probably just a package. But something in my gut tightens. Talk tomorrow? After hanging up, I check my security camera feed. The hallway looks empty, but as I'm about to dismiss it as my imagination, another knock comes, more insistent this time. Through the peephole, I see her, older, thinner, but unmistakably Tabitha. Her designer clothes are wrinkled, her signature-perfect hair now dull and limp. She's holding a beaten-up Louis Vuitton suitcase, the same one she bought with my money all those years ago. My hand hovers over the doorknob as memories flood back. Tabitha wearing my prom dress before my dance, claiming it looked better on her. Tabitha announcing her engagement at my graduation party. Tabitha, always Tabitha, taking and taking until I had nothing left to give. Another knock, softer this time. Natasha, please. I know you're home. Her voice carries the same manipulative tremor it had that day in the kitchen, the day she stole my future. But now there's something else in it. Desperation. I check my phone's calendar, noting tomorrow's presentation, the dinner with Martina, the carefully plotted steps of my life. Opening this door would be like inviting a hurricane into my sanctuary. Natasha, her voice breaks. I have nowhere else to go. My fingers trace the scar on my wrist again as an idea forms. Dangerous, tempting, perfect. For years I've imagined what I'd do if I ever had the chance to show Tabitha exactly what it feels like to be powerless, to depend on someone else's mercy. Now here she is, served up by karma on a silver platter. I smooth my blazer, check my reflection in the hallway mirror, and open the door. Tabitha's mascara-streaked face crumples with relief. Oh, thank God, she breathes. Little sister, I need your help. I smile, thinking of all the lessons I've learned since that day in the kitchen. About power, about patience, about revenge served at exactly the right temperature. Come in, I say, stepping aside. We have so much to catch up on. Tabitha's suitcase wheels left tiny scuff marks on my polished hardwood floors as she dragged it inside. I made a mental note to clean them later, along with whatever else my sister's presence would soil. Nice place, she said, her eyes scanning my apartment with the same calculating look she used to give my belongings before claiming them as her own. Very you. I moved to the kitchen, keeping the island between us. What happened to your place in Chicago? It's complicated. Tabitha sank onto my white leather couch, her designer clothes somehow managing to look both expensive and shabby. Jackson, he wasn't who I thought he was. Shocking. I poured 2 glasses of water, no ice for hers. The man you left your husband for turned out to be untrustworthy? He took everything, Nat. Her voice cracked. The money, the house, even my credit. I didn't know he was running a scheme until the FBI showed up. I set her water down on a coaster, deliberately far enough that she'd have to reach for it. And Mom and Dad? They're not speaking to me. She picked up the glass, her hands trembling. I tried, but after what happened with Jackson and then the investigation, they said they couldn't help anymore. Couldn't or wouldn't? Does it matter? Her eyes welled up. You're all I have left. I walked to my office and returned with a legal pad and pen. If you're staying here, we need to establish some ground rules. Rules? She blinked, tears forgotten. Nat, I'm your sister, not some... First, I interrupted, writing as I spoke, you'll need to find a job, any job. I don't care if it's brewing coffee or folding clothes, but I have a degree in... Second, you'll contribute to household expenses, rent, utilities, groceries, 30% of whatever you earn. 30%? Her voice rose. That's ridiculous. I don't have any. Third, I continued, you'll attend financial literacy classes. I'm signing you up tomorrow. Tabitha stood up, her old fire returning. I'm not some charity case you can reform, Natasha. I made some mistakes, but I'm still your older sister. No. I met her gaze. You're a guest in my home. These are my terms. Take them or find somewhere else to stay. She deflated, sinking back onto the couch. You've changed. Yes, I handed her the list. I had to. My phone buzzed. A text from Ismael. Everything okay? The guest room is through there, I said, pointing. Bathroom's attached. I have a presentation tomorrow morning, so I need to prep. Nat? Tabitha's voice was small. Thank you. I know I don't deserve... You're right, you don't. I turned toward my office. There are clean towels in the bathroom. Don't use my skincare products. Later that night, after I heard Tabitha's shower run and stop, after the guest room door clicked shut, I called Ismael. She's actually there? He whispered. What are you going to do? I watched the city lights through my window, thinking of the day Tabitha had taken my college fund, how she'd cried and promised to pay it back, how she'd moved to Chicago 2 weeks later with my future in her bank account. Remember that project management framework I developed? I said. The one that turned the failing startup around? The accountability matrix? Yeah, it was brilliant. I'm going to use it on her. I smiled in the darkness. Every task, every penny, every decision tracked and measured. By the time I'm done, she'll understand exactly what it means to build something from nothing. That's kind of evil. He paused. I love it. It's not evil, I said, watching a shooting star streak across the sky. It's education, something she should have gotten years ago. And the fact that it'll make her squirm is just a bonus? A significant bonus. I heard movement in the guest room. I should go. Presentation tomorrow. Hey, Nat. Ismael's voice softened. Be careful, okay? Don't let this become, become what? Something that hurts you more than her. I ended the call and opened my laptop, creating a new spreadsheet. Column headers, date, task, completion status, financial impact. The framework that had saved my career, repurposed for personal use. A notification popped up. An email from Martina about tomorrow's dinner. Subject line, your future awaits. I glanced toward the guest room, where my past lay sleeping on thousand thread count sheets. Tomorrow, Tabitha would wake up to a new reality, one where every privilege had to be earned, every mistake had consequences, and her little sister held all the power. Sweet dreams, I whispered, typing the first entry into my spreadsheet. Day 1, arrival. Status, commenced. The cursor blinked steadily, like a metronome counting beats to a symphony of long-awaited justice. Outside, Austin hummed with late-night energy, but in my apartment, everything was still, poised on the edge of something that felt remarkably like destiny. You want me to what? Tabitha stared at the mop in my hands like it was a live snake. Clean the floors, all of them. I checked my watch. I have a meeting in 20 minutes, and when I come back, I expect to see my reflection in these hardwoods. I've never, I mean, I usually hire people for this sort of thing. And how's that working out for you? I grabbed my laptop bag. Cleaning supplies are under the sink. Don't mix the chemicals. As I closed the door, I heard her mutter something that sounded suspiciously like slave driver. Perfect. My presentation went brilliantly. Martina's smile grew wider with each slide, and by the end, the whole room was leaning forward, engaged. Exceptional work, Martina said afterward, walking me to her office. The promotion is yours if you want it, though I have to ask, you seem different today, more focused. I thought of Tabitha on her hands and knees, finally learning what real work felt like. Let's just say I'm channeling some extra energy into my career. Back home, I found Tabitha sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by photo albums I kept in the bottom drawer of my desk. I told you to clean, not snoop. I set down my bag harder than necessary. Look at this one, she said, holding up a photo. Your 6th birthday? Remember how mad you were when I blew out your candles? Put them away. And this, she pulled out another. The day I taught you to ride a bike, you were so scared, but I wouldn't let you give up. You pushed me down a hill and I broke my arm. But you learned to ride. She smiled, touching the photo's glossy surface. We had some good times, didn't we? Before everything got so... Before you stole my future? I took the album from her hands. The floors look decent. Tomorrow we start your financial literacy classes. About that. She stood up, brushing dust from her pants. I was thinking, maybe instead of classes, you could just help me? You're obviously good with money, and I'd rather learn from my sister than some stranger. No. I started returning the albums to their drawer. You need professional help? But this isn't negotiable, Tabitha. I've already paid for the course. She crossed her arms. With what money? With your 30%. I smiled sweetly. Consider it an investment in your future. That evening, while Tabitha attended her first class at the community center, I met Ismael for coffee. She found the photos? He stirred his latte. That's a classic manipulation move. It almost worked. I showed him my spreadsheet. Look at her progress, though. The apartment's actually clean and she has an interview at that cafe tomorrow. You're enjoying this way too much. Maybe. I sipped my Americano. But you should have seen her face when I made her scrub the baseboards. My phone buzzed. A text from Tabitha. Class is interesting. Teacher says I should start by tracking every penny I spend. Already learned I waste too much on coffee. Coming home soon. Huh. I showed Ismael the message. Maybe she's actually trying. Or maybe she's playing you. Again. He leaned forward. What's your end game here, Nat? What happens when she's learned her lesson? Before I could answer, another text came through, this one from an unknown number. Is Tabitha with you? Tell her she can't hide forever. Jackson. My hand tightened around the phone. Looks like my sister's problems just got more complicated. You're not getting involved in that mess, are you? I thought of the fear in Tabitha's eyes when she'd mentioned Jackson, the way she'd flinched at the mention of the FBI. No, I said, already planning how to trace the number. I'm just giving her the tools to fix her own mess. Back home, I found Tabitha making notes from her class workbook, her handwriting as perfect as ever. The teacher said I should thank you, she said without looking up, for giving me this chance. Did she also say you should tell me the truth about Jackson? Her pen stopped moving. What do you mean? I showed her the text. She went pale. He's not supposed to know where I am. What did he really do, Tabitha? She closed her workbook, her hands shaking. You don't want to know. Actually, I do. I sat across from her. Because whatever it is followed you here, to my home. And I didn't build this life just to have you destroy it again. Tears filled her eyes. Real ones this time, not the calculated drops she'd used to manipulate our parents. He didn't just take my money, she whispered. He took everything, and if he finds me... She looked up, and for the first time since we were kids, I saw my sister instead of my rival. I'm scared, Nat, really scared. I thought of my spreadsheet, my careful plans for revenge. None of them had accounted for this, the possibility that Tabitha might need more than just a lesson in humility. Start from the beginning, I said, opening my laptop. And this time, don't leave anything out. So he wasn't just running a Ponzi scheme, I said, staring at the documents spread across my dining table. He was laundering money for actual criminals. Tabitha nodded, hugging her knees to her chest. I didn't know at first. He was so charming, said all the right things. By the time I figured it out, you were already implicated. I picked up a bank statement. Because you signed these. He said they were investment papers. Her voice cracked. I trusted him. Like how Mom and Dad trusted you with my college fund? The words hung in the air between us. Tabitha flinched. That's different, she whispered. I was going to pay it back. With what? Jackson's dirty money? I stood up, needing space. You know what the difference is between you and me, Tabitha? I learned from my mistakes. You just kept making bigger ones. My phone buzzed. Another text from Jackson. Tell her the FBI's closing in. She can run with me or take the fall alone. He's lying, Tabitha said, reading over my shoulder. The FBI already cleared me. I cooperated, told them everything I knew. Then why is he still after you? She went to the window, wrapping her arms around herself. Because I know where he hid the real money, the accounts the FBI didn't find. I sat back down hard. And you didn't tell them? It was my insurance policy. She turned to face me. In case he came after me. Jesus, Tabitha. I rubbed my temples. You're still playing angles, aren't you? Even now? I'm trying to survive. She slammed her hand on the table. You think your little rehabilitation program is going to fix everything? Make me a better person? Some of us can't afford to be perfect, Natasha. Perfect? I laughed, bitter and sharp. You think this is about being perfect? I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school after you took my money. I lived on ramen and coffee while you were buying designer bags with stolen cash. I know I messed up. She grabbed her class workbook, throwing it at me. Look, I'm doing everything you asked. I'm learning about budgets and credit scores and compound interest. I took that stupid barista job. What else do you want from me? I want you to grow up. I stood, matching her anger. I want you to stop acting like life is some game where you can cheat your way to the top. Like you're so much better? She stepped closer. With your spreadsheets tracking my every move, your little revenge fantasy of making me scrub floors, you're enjoying this. You're damn right I am. The words exploded out of me, because for once in your life, you're facing consequences. A knock at the door froze us both. Ms. Robertson? A male voice called. FBI, we'd like to speak with you. Tabitha's face went white. I grabbed her arm before she could run. Listen to me, I whispered. If you run now, it's over. Everything you've been working for these past weeks, gone. I can't go to prison, she breathed. Please, Nat. Another knock. We know you're home. Please open the door. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the fear, I saw something new, a glimmer of the person she could become if she just stopped running. Trust me, I said, still holding her arm. For once in your life, trust someone besides yourself. She swallowed hard, then nodded. I opened the door to find 2 agents, badges ready. I'm Agent Torres, the woman said. This is Agent Bryant. We need to talk about Jackson Allen. Come in, I said, stepping aside. My sister has something she'd like to tell you. Tabitha stood straighter, her hands steady for the first time since she'd arrived at my door. Yes, she said. I do. About those missing accounts. I watched as she led the agents to my dining table, where her class workbook lay among Jackson's threatening texts. She opened her phone, pulling up emails and photos, evidence she'd been gathering all along. Start from the beginning, Agent Torres said, taking out a notebook. Tabitha caught my eye across the room. For a moment, I saw the sister who'd taught me to ride a bike, before life and greed and bad choices had twisted her into someone I barely knew. The beginning, she said, taking a deep breath. Right. Well, it started when I met Jackson at a charity gala. I sat down to listen, my revenge spreadsheet forgotten on my laptop. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's giving them the chance to become better than they were. But as Tabitha detailed Jackson's crimes, I couldn't help wondering, was I ready to let go of my own anger, or was I just trading one form of control for another? The answer, I suspected, would determine whether this story ended in redemption or ruin. For both of us. Your sister's testimony was crucial, Agent Torres said, stirring her coffee. We picked up Jackson trying to cross into Mexico this morning. 3 days had passed since Tabitha's confession. We sat in my kitchen, the morning sun painting everything in shades of gold. Is it really over? Tabitha asked, her hands wrapped around her own mug, the one she'd bought with her first paycheck from the cafe. The investigation is ongoing, but you're in the clear. Agent Torres smiled. The DA was impressed with your cooperation. After the agent left, Tabitha slumped against the counter. I can't believe he's actually caught. Neither can I. I checked my phone, a message from Martina asking to meet. I have to go to the office. Will you be okay? I have work anyway. She straightened her barista apron. Double shift today. Something in her voice made me pause at the door. You don't have to keep that job now that Jackson's caught. I know. She smiled. A real smile, not her usual practiced one. But I kind of like it. It's honest work. At the office, Martina was waiting with an unexpected bombshell. We're launching a foundation, she said, sliding a proposal across her desk. Supporting women in tech, focusing on those who faced financial barriers to education. I picked up the document, my throat tight. And you want me to run it? She leaned forward. Your story, Natasha, working your way up from nothing, it's exactly what we want to represent. I don't know. I thought of Tabitha, learning to make lattes and balance books. My story isn't finished yet. That's exactly why you're perfect for this. Martina's eyes sparkled. You understand both sides, the struggle and the success. Back home that evening, I found Tabitha surrounded by papers again, but this time they were college brochures. The cafe manager suggested I take some business classes, she said, not looking up. Said I have a knack for customer service. You always did know how to charm people. I sat beside her, though usually for the wrong reasons. Yeah, well, she shuffled the brochures. Maybe it's time I used my powers for good. My phone buzzed. Ismael asking about dinner. But before I could reply, Tabitha spoke again. I found this in my old emails. She handed me her phone. From the day I took your money. The email was from Jackson, dated 13 years ago. Your sister's fund is perfect. Once we have it, we can start building our empire. Remember, it's you or her, and you deserve this more. He was grooming me even then, Tabitha whispered, looking for vulnerable people, making them think they deserved to take from others. I stared at the screen, memories shifting like kaleidoscope pieces. Why show me this now? Because I need you to understand. She took her phone back. What I did was wrong. God, it was so wrong. But I was caught in his web before I even knew it existed. That doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. She met my eyes. Nothing excuses what I did to you. But maybe understanding why helps us move forward. I thought of Martina's foundation proposal. What if there was a way to turn all this into something good? What do you mean? I pulled out my laptop, opening a new document, not a spreadsheet this time, but a blank page full of possibility. What if we created something together? A program to help people avoid scams like Jackson's. Combine it with education, mentorship, like your revenge plan? She smiled wryly. But for other people, better than that. I started typing. A real chance for people who need it. No strings, no revenge, just opportunity. Using Jackson's hidden accounts? Tabitha leaned forward. The ones I helped recover? Poetic justice. I showed her the rough outline. But we do it right this time. Everything transparent, everything legal. She was quiet for a long moment, reading. You know what this means, right? We'd have to actually work together, trust each other. Terrifying, isn't it? Completely. She pulled out her class workbook, but I've been learning about business plans in class. Maybe I could help with the structure? My phone buzzed again. Ismael sending a string of question marks. I texted back quickly. Rain check, building something new. You really want to do this? Tabitha asked. Work with me after everything? I thought about the girl who'd blown out my birthday candles, the woman who'd faced down the FBI, and the sister sitting beside me now. All versions of Tabitha, all part of our complicated story. I think, I said slowly, that the best revenge against people like Jackson is creating something he can never destroy, something built on truth instead of lies. She nodded, already making notes. Where do we start? With the hardest part. I opened my revenge spreadsheet one last time. We start by letting go of the past. With a click, I deleted the file. Outside, the Austin sunset painted the sky in colors of forgiveness and possibility, while inside, two sisters began the delicate work of building something new from the ashes of what was lost. You want me to do what? I stared at Agent Torres across the courthouse cafeteria table. Testify against Jackson. She pushed a paper cup of mediocre coffee toward me. Your sister's testimony is strong, but we need to establish a pattern. Show how he targeted families, manipulated relationships. I never even met him, but you were his first victim. She pulled out a file. Through Tabitha. Beside me, Tabitha flinched. We'd taken the morning off, her from the cafe, me from the office, to meet with the prosecution team. There's something else, Agent Torres said, lowering her voice. We found evidence that Jackson was working with someone at your parents' bank, someone who flagged your college fund as an easy target. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. What? An inside job, Tabitha whispered. That's how he knew about the money. My phone buzzed. Martina asking about the foundation proposal. I ignored it, my hands shaking as I reached for the file. The bank manager, I said, recognizing the name. The one who helped me set up the account when I was 16. He's agreed to testify, Agent Torres said, in exchange for a reduced sentence. Tabitha grabbed my arm. Nat, I swear I didn't know. I thought he just looked up public records or something. We need both of you, Agent Torres continued. Show how Jackson's operation worked from start to finish. The grooming, the manipulation, the theft. I stood up abruptly, needing air. Outside the courthouse, the Texas sun beat down mercilessly. Natasha, wait! Tabitha caught up to me. Please, we have to talk about this. Talk about what? I spun to face her. How my entire life was derailed because some banker sold me out? How you were just the convenient tool. I wasn't just a tool. Her voice hardened. I made my choices. Did you? Because it sounds like you were just another victim in Jackson's game. Don't. She stepped closer. Don't you dare take this from me. My guilt, my responsibility. It's part of who I am now, part of why I'm changing. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ismael. Heard about the trial. You okay? We have to testify, Tabitha said softly. Not just for the case, but for us, for everything we're trying to build. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a cafe t-shirt. Her perfectly manicured nails were now short and practical. But it was her eyes that had changed the most, clear and steady, no longer hiding behind practiced charm. Fine. I pulled out my laptop. But we do this my way. No more secrets, no more angles. We spent the next hour in a nearby park, piecing together the puzzle of how Jackson had orchestrated everything. The bank manager's involvement explained so much. How Jackson had known exactly when the money would be available, how the transfer had gone through without flags. Look at this, Tabitha said, pointing to her screen. She'd been digging through old emails. The bank manager introduced me to Jackson at a charity event, said he was a promising young investor looking for partners. He set you up. He set us both up. She closed her laptop, but we can stop it from happening to anyone else. My phone rang, Martina again. This time I answered. The foundation board loves your proposal, she said without preamble, especially the fraud prevention component. When can you start? I looked at Tabitha, who was watching a group of college students cross the park, their futures still untouched by people like Jackson. We can start next week, I said, after the trial. That evening, back in my apartment, Tabitha brought out the old photo albums again. But this time, instead of using them to manipulate, she pointed to specific moments, turning points where Jackson's influence had started to show. See how my smile changed here? She tapped a photo from Christmas years ago. That's when he started suggesting I deserved more than what our parents gave me. And this one? I pointed to a picture of us at my graduation, where you announced your engagement. He timed it deliberately. She closed the album, said it would make you feel overshadowed, more likely to let me borrow the money. A text from Agent Torres lit up both our phones. Trial starts Monday. Be ready. Are we? Tabitha asked. Ready, I mean? I walked to my office and returned with 2 folders, one for each of us. Our testimony prep, I said, handing her one. Everything organized, every detail accounted for. She smiled. Still the organized one. Someone has to be. I opened my folder. Now, let's make sure Jackson never hurts another family again. Outside, a storm was brewing, lightning illuminating the Austin skyline. But inside, 2 sisters bent over their folders, preparing to turn their darkest chapter into someone else's salvation. The revenge I'd planned seemed small now, compared to this. The chance to transform our story into a shield for others, a warning light in the darkness Jackson had created. The courtroom fell silent as Jackson walked in, his designer suit replaced by prison orange. He looked smaller somehow, less magnetic without his carefully crafted facade. Don't look at him, Tabitha whispered beside me. He's trying to catch our eyes. I kept my gaze forward as the proceedings began. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically. The long history of fraud, the manipulated families, the destroyed lives. When she called Tabitha to testify, my sister squeezed my hand before standing. Ms. Robertson, the prosecutor began, please tell us how you met Mr. Allen. Tabitha's voice stayed steady as she described that first meeting, the careful grooming, the slow erosion of her moral compass. She didn't flinch when she talked about my college fund, though her hands gripped the witness stand until her knuckles went white. And the money? The prosecutor asked. What happened to it? It went into an account in the Caymans. Tabitha looked directly at Jackson for the first time. Along with money from 12 other families. I have the account numbers. Jackson's lawyer stood. Objection! My client was not responsible for Ms. Robertson's independent actions. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. When it was my turn to testify, I felt Jackson's eyes on me like a physical weight. Tell us about the day you discovered your college fund was gone, the prosecutor said. I was holding acceptance letters. The memory was razor sharp. 3 universities had said yes. I went to withdraw the application fees, but the account was empty. And how did this affect your life? I glanced at Tabitha, then back to the prosecutor. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through community college, slept on friends' couches, taught myself coding between shifts at a diner. But you succeeded, the prosecutor noted. I did. I straightened in my seat. No thanks to the man who orchestrated my sister's theft. Jackson's lawyer pounced. Isn't it true that your sister acted alone? That my client never directly... Objection! The prosecutor stood. The evidence clearly shows Mr. Allen's involvement through the bank manager's testimony. During a brief recess, Ismail found us in the hallway. You both did great, he said, handing us coffee. Jackson looked ready to crack when Tabitha mentioned the account numbers. It's not over yet, I said, watching Jackson's lawyer huddle with him in a corner. They're planning something. I was right. When court resumed, Jackson himself took the stand. I was in love with Tabitha, he said, his voice carrying that familiar smooth persuasion. Everything I did was to build a future for us. Yes, I made mistakes, but like targeting her sister's college fund? The prosecutor interrupted. That was Tabitha's idea. He looked at her with practiced remorse. I tried to talk her out of it. Beside me, Tabitha stood up. He's lying. The judge banged his gavel. Order! I have evidence, Jackson continued, pulling out a letter. A written confession from Tabitha, dated before we met, stating her intentions to take the money. The courtroom erupted. Tabitha grabbed my arm. Nat, that's impossible. I never. The bank manager, I whispered, understanding clicking. He forged it. The prosecutor seemed prepared. Your Honor, I'd like to present new evidence. A forensic analysis of the defendant's computer showing the creation date of this alleged confession. As the technical expert testified about digital timestamps and forged documents, I watched Jackson's confident smile fade. When they proved the letter was created just 2 weeks ago, using prison computer resources, he finally cracked. You don't understand. He stood up, shrugging off his lawyer's restraining hand. These people, they have money they don't deserve. I just redistributed it to those who could use it better. Like yourself? The prosecutor asked quietly. Someone had to benefit. His eyes were wild now. These rich families, hoarding opportunities. I did them a favor, teaching them about loss. The judge banged his gavel again. Remove the defendant. As guards led Jackson away, he turned to Tabitha. You were nothing before me. Nothing. Tabitha stood, her voice clear and strong. No, Jackson. I was someone's sister, and I forgot that for way too long. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on all counts. As the courtroom cleared, Agent Torres approached us. The bank manager's sentencing is tomorrow, she said. Will you be there? I looked at Tabitha, who nodded. We'll be there. Outside the courthouse, storm clouds gathered again, but this time they felt cleansing rather than threatening. I have something for you, Tabitha said, pulling an envelope from her bag. My savings from the cafe job. It's not much, but it's a start on paying you back. I stared at the envelope. Keep it. Nat, please, I need to make this right. Then invest it in our foundation. I pulled out my phone, showing her Martina's latest email. The board approved our full proposal. We start next month. Tabitha read the email, tears forming. You still want to work with me? After everything that came out in court? The truth needed to come out. I took the envelope, tucking it into my laptop bag. Now we can build something real, something honest. Lightning split the sky as we walked to my car, illuminating the path ahead. For the first time since Tabitha showed up at my door, I felt truly certain about our direction. The revenge I'd planned seemed like a lifetime ago. We had bigger things to build now. And that's how my sister stole my college fund, I said into the microphone. But this story isn't about theft. It's about rebuilding. The auditorium was packed with students, their faces illuminated by the presentation screen behind me. Our foundation's first major event, a seminar on financial fraud prevention at the same community college where I'd started my journey. The person who took your future, I continued, might be someone you trust, someone you love. But here's what I learned. Your future isn't something that can be stolen. It can only be redirected. From the side of the stage, Tabitha gave me a thumbs up. She'd be speaking next, telling her side of the story, not for sympathy, but as a warning about how easily manipulation can twist good people into doing terrible things. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Martina checking on the event. She'd been skeptical about putting both sisters on stage, telling our raw truth to a room full of strangers. But I knew it was right. Some stories need to be heard in stereo. Questions? I asked, wrapping up my part. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. How did you forgive your sister? I glanced at Tabitha. I haven't. Not completely. But I learned something better than forgiveness. I learned to build something stronger than the past. As Tabitha took the stage, I sat in the front row, watching my sister step into her truth. My name is Tabitha, she began, and I was a fraud, not just because I stole money, but because I stole something more precious, trust. Her voice carried through the room, steady and clear, so different from the practiced charm she'd once wielded like a weapon. "But this isn't a confession," she continued. "It's a warning, because right now, in this room, there's probably someone thinking about taking a shortcut, making an exception, believing the lie that the end justifies the means." She clicked to the next slide, a photo of Jackson in court. "This man taught me that lie, and I believed it because it was easier than facing my own jealousy, my own inadequacy." She looked directly at me. "Easier than admitting I was destroying my sister's dreams because I couldn't build my own." After the presentation, while students lined up to talk with us, Ismael appeared with coffee. "That was intense," he said, handing me my usual Americano. "You okay?" "Better than okay." I watched Tabitha talking to a group of students, her cafe-trained barista skills forgotten as she gestured passionately about red flags and investment schemes. "We're actually helping people." "Ms. Robertson?" A quiet voice interrupted. An older woman stood nearby, clutching a familiar-looking envelope. "I'm from the bank. The one where it happened." My breath caught. "Yes? The new management wanted you to have this." She handed me the envelope. "It's not just restitution for your stolen funds. It's seed money for your foundation's scholarship program." Inside was a check with enough zeros to fund several students' educations. But it was the note attached that made my hands shake. Because some debts can never be repaid. They can only be paid forward. "Nat?" Tabitha had finished with her students. "What's that?" I showed her the check. Her eyes widened. That's more than what I took." "It's not about the money anymore." I tucked the check away. "It's about what we do with it." Later that evening in my apartment, Tabitha and I sat surrounded by scholarship applications, stories of other young people facing their own crossroads. "Look at this one," she said, passing me a file. "Single mom, working 2 jobs, teaching herself coding between shifts. Remind you of anyone?" "Yeah," I smiled. "Someone who needed a chance." My phone buzzed, a text from Agent Torres. "Jackson took a plea deal. No parole chance for 15 years. Thought you'd want to know." "It's really over," Tabitha said, reading over my shoulder. "No." I picked up another application. "It's really beginning." Outside, the Austin skyline glittered with possibility. Inside, 2 sisters who had once been divided by money were now united by something stronger, the chance to turn their darkest chapter into someone else's light. "Hey, Nat." Tabitha's voice was soft. "Remember when you made me clean your floors as punishment?" "Part of my master revenge plan," I admitted. "Not my finest moment." "Actually," she laughed, "it taught me something important. Sometimes you have to get on your knees and do the hard work before you can stand up straight again." I looked at the scholarship applications, each one a story of struggle and hope. "We've got a lot of hard work ahead," I said. "Good thing there's 2 of us now." She picked up another file. "Ready to change some lives?" "Ready," I said, and meant it, because sometimes the best endings aren't about revenge or redemption. Sometimes they're about taking the broken pieces of your past and using them to build bridges to someone else's future. That's not just justice, that's transformation.